Hi everyone and welcome back to another video, and today I'll be sharing with you guys my favorite gambits to play as white and black. But before we start talking about the aggressive gambits, I'd like to invite you guys to subscribe to the channel if you are not yet subscribed. Alright, so the first gambit we're gonna take a look at, and this is one of my favorite gambits to play, is a gambit that you play when you play e4 and your opponent plays the Sicilian defense with c5. And this is one of the most famous gambits that you can find, and it has a very good reputation. The grandmasters, masters and grandmasters in general, they say that this gambit is actually pretty good. And it's the Smith-Morra Gambit when you play d4 as white. And what you're doing in this opening is you are inviting black to take this pawn. And as they take this pawn, you are not going to take it back with the queen. Otherwise, you're just going to invite this move with the knight, hitting your queen and gaining a tempo, developing with tempo. So what you're going to do here is, as black takes this pawn, you are going to offer another pawn. So you're going to push c3, offering yet another pawn for your opponent to take. In this case, you're going to take back with the knight, and you're going to have a lead in development and two open lines to attack. The C and the D files will be open for you to attack. And your next moves are going to be very simple. You're going to develop your knight and your bishop right here, castle short very quickly, and you can bring your queen right here, and you can bring your rook to the open files. This bishop might come here or here, depending on the situation, and this pawn might be pushed in the future. So this is a very simple setup to play, and you can play this against any Sicilian, basically. So, and there are some other ways to achieve the same position via a transposition. So when your opponent plays c5, you are going to trick them into thinking that you're going to play an open Sicilian by playing the move knight f3, and your opponent might play like a move such as, let's say, d6, and you play d4, your opponent takes, and you're not going to take back with the knight here. You're going to offer the pawn by playing c3, and as they take, you just take back with the knight, and you have a similar position. It's just a transposition. You develop your bishop, castle very quickly. You can bring your rooks to the open files. This bishop might come here or here again. This pawn might be pushed in the future. You have very easy gameplay with open lines and very easy to attack as white. Now the second gambit that I'm going to share with you guys is one of my favorite gambits to play as well when I play e4 and my opponent replies by playing e5. So this one is a little bit different from the previous one that was against the Sicilian. This is just the king's pawns opening. So we're gonna play here d4, and we are offering this pawn for black to take. This is not actually a gambit so far because we can take back with the queen. I actually like this opening. This is an opening that I usually play, and I consider to be one of the most underrated and underestimated openings, the center game. Of course, after you take here, your opponent's gonna move the knight and hit your queen. Some people dislike this opening because of that, but it's actually very playable. But if I'm feeling very aggressive that day and I want to play aggressive chess, I push c3, offering another pawn for my opponent to take. And as they take, I am not going to take it back with the knight here. I'm going to play bishop to c4, very aggressive move, and I'm offering another pawn for my opponent to take. And as they take this pawn, I take back with the bishop. Bishop takes b2, and now I gave away two pawns for this very strong attack here with the two very active bishops and many open lines to attack. It's a very easy gameplay here from here on. The queen might join the party here or here. This knight might develop here or here in the future. It's very easy to develop this knight and castle very quickly, bring the rooks to the open files. This pawn might be pushed in the future, and if your opponent is not aware and develops this bishop in a very clumsy way, you always have this pawn hanging and this rook in the corner as well. So this is a very strong, powerful attack against black, especially for faster time controls. If you like aggressive openings with a lot of attack and initiative, this opening is perfect for you. And the next gambit that I'm going to share with you, it's one of my favorite gambits as well to play. And this one, again, when I play e4, I like to play this one when my opponent plays the Scandinavian defense. And I just push d4 right here. And suddenly we transpose to a Black-Mar-Diemer Gambit, and I really like this Black-Mar-Diemer Gambit. And this is actually a 2-in-1 because we can play the Black-Mar-Diemer and we can also play the Ryder Gambit, which is even more aggressive. So when my opponent goes for the Scandinavian, I don't go into their lines. I don't take the pawn and try to play their boring line where they take with the queen and I play knight here. I just like to take them out of their comfort zone and play an opening that they are not familiar with. So I push d4 and suddenly we are playing in my opening in my territory and they don't know the theory and I already have an edge. So they might take this pawn here more often than not, and you are not going to, here you can take back actually. So you're going to develop the knight here, knight to c3, attacking this pawn. And more often than not, your opponent is going to try to hold on to it and defend this pawn by playing knight to f6. And after that, you're going to offer another pawn for your opponent to take by playing f3. And as the opponent takes here, you will have two options. You can branch this as much as you want, but here you can play the Black-Mar-Diemer Gambit by just taking the pawn with the knight, or you can play the Ryder Gambit, very interesting gambit here, if you take with the queen, which looks crazy, but it actually works. The Black-Mar-Diemer is the safer option here, and it's a very powerful gambit. You have two open files here to attack. The E and the F files are open for you to place your rooks here and have a very aggressive attack against your opponent. And very simple game from here. You can develop your bishop, castle very quickly, then suddenly your rook will already be on an open file. So you develop the bishop, castle very quickly. You can castle short here if you want, or you can try to develop the pieces and try to castle long, not a big deal. Some people do that as well. You just bring your pieces out and castle. But I personally prefer to just develop the bishop, castle short, and start bringing my other pieces to the game. I can develop my bishop right here. I can bring my my queen to the game. Very easy gameplay here with the open files against my opponent. Or if you're feeling a little more interested in an aggressive game, you can take with the queen actually. And this is the Ryder Gambit. You are offering this pawn, which is now undefended, for your opponent to take with the queen. And as they take this pawn with the queen, you're going to develop your bishop with tempo against black's queen. And this queen will have to move. Sometimes they move the queen here. In that case, you can just castle long and finish your development on the queen side, on the king side, sorry. Or if they place the queen here, you can just drop your queen back and you can continue developing here on the king side. You can even castle here on the king side after you develop the pieces, and it's a great game. If they just retreat within this file, you can always play rook to d1, chasing this queen again and making, some other moves for black to block this attack against the queen. So you keep developing with tempo. There are some really powerful traps in this opening, especially if your opponent plays this move. You're going to castle long here, and suddenly your rook is pointing and taking away some cape squares from the king here. And very quickly, you can play some powerful attacks here. Let's just play the move so you can see that. So these squares are suddenly taken away. Next move, you're going to play your knight here, which is protected by your bishop, of course. So this is probably going to be your next move, aiming to take this with checkmate on black's king. And believe it or not, guys, this happens a lot. So the Ryder Gambit is always worth it taking a look at. All right, and last but not least, we're going to take a look at a gambit to play as black. And this is one of my favorite gambits to play as black because a lot of people underestimate this opening. They say it's just a one-trick game and you have just one shot for one trap, and if it doesn't work, you're gonna lose material. But that's not the case if you play the right line of this gambit. And I'm talking about the Englund Gambit. When you play against d4, you push e5 and you're just offering this pawn. There is nothing defending this pawn. White can just take it, and that's what you want white to do. I have a full video on this opening, and as white takes this, we're not going to go for that trappy line where you just develop the knight and try to checkmate in a couple moves. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to push d6 here, offering this pawn for white to take. And as they take this, we're just going to take back with the bishop, having an edge in development and open lines to attack. That's the whole purpose of playing gambits, right? You offer some material, usually a pawn or two, in order to have open lines and piece activity to attack your opponent and win with initiative. Some people say that this is not technically the Englund Gambit. It's actually another gambit called Hartlaub-Charlik Gambit. But honestly, it transposes from a Englund Gambit line, so I just take back with the bishop here. And what I'm going to do here in my next plan is to just develop the queen side first. I'm going to develop the knight. Bishop's probably going to come here to pin the knight. That will probably be developed to this square. And then I can bring my queen over here and castle long. My rook will be pointing at white's queen here. And then maybe I can think about pawn storming or developing the pieces on the king side. And we're going to throw an attack against white's king. That's probably going to be castled right here. That's what we're going to do. So the plan is develop the knight, bishop, queen here, and castle long. That's my plan in this position. After knight f3, we play knight c6, knight c3, bishop g4, attacking the knight. They play e3 in this position here. And what we're going to do is we're going to play queen to e7, clearing the way for, in our next move after bishop e2, for example, castle long. And now we have this very powerful X-ray here, and we are ready to sacrifice bishop here to take this queen soon enough. And believe it or not, guys, this happens a lot. If white's not careful here, the right move actually here is to play bishop here to block this queen, this file from the queen being attacked here. So if they are not aware and they castle, you can just take this knight right here, and after white recaptures, you take on h2 with check. After white captures here, they lose the queen, of course. After, of course, white recaptures, you can develop your knight, you can bring your queen to a more active square, checking the king, potentially attacking this knight and hitting this knight. After this pawn moves, you can take it. So that attack, this powerful gambit can be actually deadly if you know how to play. And there's more. If your opponent is a pre-mover and you're playing like faster time controls and they are a London system players, and if you can't stand London system players, they just repeat the same moves over and over again, they might pre-move this move here, bishop here. So in case you play this opening and they are pre-moving, you know, you can catch them here in this position and you just win a piece right from the start. So this is very typical, very common. Sometimes they even pre-move this, right? Because of course, you know, London system players, they like to pre-move their moves. They just play this and this and then this, and then they play the bishop here, knight here, pawn, castle. It's always the same thing. So if they pre-move this, very easily you can win a piece right from the start, and believe this happens a lot. You can check the lead chess database and you can see that this move, bishop f4, is very, very commonly played here. And after that, they might even continue by playing e3 because they pre-moved like the first 3 or 4 moves of this opening, and then you win. You know, you can trade this pawn here if you want and mess up the pawn structure for white. And this is going to be an easy win for you. So it's another trap that is within this very underrated and powerful gambit, the Englund Gambit. And if you liked this video, please remember to leave a like, comment down below a gambit that you would like to see here in on the channel and I didn't talk about in this video. And maybe I can record a video about your gambit. And as always, guys, subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed yet, because I post videos pretty much every day here, giving tips for chess improvement. And as always, I see you guys in the next one.